Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey is scheduled to testify before the House Committee on Energy and Commerce this afternoon. And joining us now is a member of that committee, Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger of Illinois. And with us, the CEO of the mobile news platform NewsPicks, Ian Myers.
I've got to ask Adam. Adam, what, you, Colbert? I mean, are you guys both going to grow up?
Is he doing it too?
Is he gonna have are you going to have the Letterman beard?
What? You need to shave.
Yeah. Well, I looked at it. I'm like, I don't have enough gray hair on my head, so I may as well grow some out of my face, too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
I'd say shave.
You know, you could just brush your hair and,
shave.
No, I like that
color
look.
it or something.
He's got that young,
like, hey, man,
spiky hair, like I just rolled out of bed.
All right,
actually, I fixed it up. Look.
So, obviously, some problems with Twitter. I was just talking about a California candidate on Facebook who had her ad yanked because she showed accurate pictures of what happened in Cambodia. What are you going to ask Jack Dorsey this morning?
So first off, Elizabeth's awesome. I know her. She used to work on the committee I'm on Foreign Affairs, and that is unfortunate that her ad was taken down. Where she's like, "Look, my family came from Cambodia. You ever heard of the Killing Fields, Khmer Rouge?" Right. So here's the big battle with what we're dealing with the Twitter Facebook issue. And your guest prior to going to break said it, which is you have to have like 20,000 people that are going to go through all this content if you're going to have every issue basically decided with a human. Mm-hmm. The reality is there's millions and millions of Facebook posts or Twitter tweets that go out every basically minute, and so you have to automate that, and that's where the issue is. So one of the things I'm going to be most interested in this, you're going to have some people that probably ask questions way out there on both sides here. What I'm really interested in is how in the future do we prevent things like Russian interference or Russian influence in our election? How do we get to a point where we know that people can have free speech, but at the same time, we're not giving a platform for intelligence agencies like Vladimir Putin's guys to come in here and influence and divide our country? And it's really going to be a tough thing. I mean, really, we're going to be dealing with this for years, and it's going to constantly change. That's what we need to get to the bottom of.
Mr. Confessori.
I wish we had someone who's really looked into this. Go ahead.
Past hearings on this, Ian, we've seen kind of these niche issues take over. Diamond and Silk is my favorite one. You've had people raising issues about censorship.
Hilarious.
But this is the Senate Intel Committee. And I wonder if, I'm just curious if in today's hearings, we're going to see more focus on certain issues. I believe Dorsey is speaking at a different committee, but are we going to see more focus on the Russia issues, or are we going to see this kind of grab bag of lawmakers taking shots in different ways?
I think the first thing we're going to see when Sheryl Sandberg and Dorsey go up is going to be focused on the Russia issues. That involves Facebook, that involves Twitter, that involves all the social platforms. After that, we'll probably see Twitter ask questions about and Dorsey ask questions about the bias on his platform. And of course, they're going to point to specific incidents. This is what gets the public excited. This is what people get upset over, and the specific incidents give the most gravitas to the moment, and that's really, I think, what the hearings are about.
Hey, Congressman, it's Willie Geist. As you know, these private companies don't have an obligation to the First Amendment. What worries a lot of conservatives of having these companies, which many view as having leadership, and Jack Dorsey has admitted himself that leans left, making these decisions about what's appropriate content on their sites. Where do you think that line should be, and who makes that decision?
I'm uncomfortable with the government, whether it's with people when they talk about it with radio and the fairness doctrine and all these other issues, with government coming in and determining what opinion should be on what station, what channel, what time. So I think as a private company, look, they have a right to do certain things. Now, however, once you become as big as Twitter or once you become as big as Facebook, I believe there's a broader obligation that you at least have to be accountable to. And so while Jack was, I respect the fact that he admitted that most of his people are left-leaning. What we want to know is, do you have algorithms in Twitter that's going to support left-leaning over right-leaning? I don't know if that's the case necessarily. I've seen these diagrams where you see that conservatives only tweet and read people that are conservative and vice versa for liberals, and really there's no intermeshing of folks. So I think there's a lot we have to learn. But again, some people are going to showboat, on both sides of the aisle, I'm sure, but this is a real opportunity to get some answers and begin a much longer discussion that we have to have, I think.
Congressman, you have a new op-ed out that says the worst is yet to come in Syria. What is the strategy? What needs to be the strategy going forward? What are you advocating? right now?
Well, there's been no strategy since this whole thing started. I remember being in Israel in 2011, and our guide's like, hey, yeah, there's a little fight over here in Syria. It may turn into a civil war. Well, here we are. And this is going to be the shame of our generation. Like 500,000 dead Syrians, 50,000 of which are children. So I think right now, I think the only answer is really a negotiated solution, but that's going to come from the United States and from our allies. I think it's taking a strong position that says Idlib, this kind of last holdout of free Syrian rebels, cannot be a massacre. And I would like to see a no-fly zone. I would like to see some much stronger action at that level. Realistically, I think if we can come to a negotiated solution where maybe Syria looks different in the final outcome, but Russia shouldn't have a place in Syria, nor should Iran, and the people should decide the future of that country.
Ian, just going back to Jack Dorsey's appearance before Congress, one of the big criticisms after Mark Zuckerberg's appearance before Congress was that it looked like a lot of people questioning him who had just discovered the internet that morning. There are people, though, in this committee like Congressman Kinzinger, who are, and he's got the stubble to prove it, are more in touch and younger and in touch with what's happening online. You talk to congressional aides of people who will question Jack Dorsey. What should we expect here?
Well, I mean, the very fact that they called me means they're aware that that was a problem last time, right? And they're looking for more information. Two big questions they had, mainly, is there any competition out there? That's why they were ringing us. That's why they asked us, are there any other social media options for people if they want to go somewhere else? And the second was really around just understanding how these business models work. Why do people stay on them? Why don't people leave? So has there been a lot of learning between then and now? Not really, but it looks like they're making the effort.
Okay. All right, Congressman Adam Kinzinger, thank you so much.
Thank you, Congressman.
Ian
Always
Myers,
good
thank you as well.
Thank you,
and
Ian.
still ahead, Senator Ben Sasse breaks with the president on trade. We'll ask the Nebraska Republican about that and much more just ahead on Morning Joe.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.